that one a little bit more. And I need one more. So same thing again, duplicate to get another one. It's going to be sprite 4. And edit the costume. And I want a yellowy one for that. So now we have each of these. We can bring that down a little. There we go. So now we just need to fix the scripts for each of these. So when I receive 1 on the green one is number 1. I will do all that when I receive, this one will be when I receive 2. So we create a new message named 2. And when 2 is clicked, add 2 to the user list. And then 3, when I receive, it'll be a 3. And then add 3 to the user list. And when I receive 4, then add 4 to the user list. And I'm going to put this one over here. So let's check what we've got so far. So when the green flag is clicked, we're going to do some resetting of getting rid of the things that are in the current list. So set the list back to empty, set these numbers back to 0 to start with, and then broadcast next. And when you receive next, we're going to add a random number from 1 to 4 to the computer list, set the this computer variable up here that's showing to the length of that list, and then broadcast show computer pics and wait, which is what we were just working on, show computer pics. When we say show computer pics, we're going to set index to 1, loop through the list, so repeat length of the list, broadcast an item number. That's what's going to show what the computer pic is by, like here, if it picked 1 on the list, it'll change the size, hit a drum. Oh, we also want to change the sound. We don't want the same sound for all of them. So I'll just pick something now. We can always change the sounds later. Something else we like. But we want the sounds to be different. Okay, so I have different sounds for each of them. So, and then we change the index by 1, so we loop through the whole list. So now we need to write the next piece, which is wait for user pics. And I'm running out of space here, so I can use this handy feature on the top to get more space to work with. So on control here, I'm going to have when I receive wait for user pics. I will now basically wait until the length, so I will forever be checking. So under control, I could say forever. Well, so forever if, yeah, I can keep waiting basically. Forever if length of one list is not equal or it's less than the other list, so we can, under operators, look for less than. So if the length of what the user has picked, so that'll be the user list, so I change this to user list. So the length of that, and I may have to move some things around here a little bit to make this easier to see. So when we receive that, the length of that list versus the length is less than the length of the computer list, then you're just going to keep waiting. But once it isn't, so length of user list is less than that. When we get past that, we're going to broadcast. We're going to check to see do we have the right values. So we'll add another broadcast. We don't have nothing to connect that to, though. So we want to wait. Yeah. That doesn't give us anything to add to at the end. That's not what I want to do then. So when I receive wait for user pics, basically what we're trying to wait for is each time we do this, we're adding to the list. So I may take off that wait for user list, because really what I may do is set it here, set user to length of user, and then check if the length is equal, and go back and then broadcast to check the length. to check the answers. So I think I'm going to do that instead here. So in control, I'm going to add an if. So this is where I'm going to check to see if the lengths are equal now. If the lengths of these two lists are equal, then it's time to check them. So if the length of the user list equals the length of the computer list, then you've at least tried to do as many as it asked you to do. You may not have gotten them right, so then we will broadcast we can say broadcast and wait. A new message saying check user picks. And unfortunately, we were going to want to do that on all of these, so we're going to have to, there's no way to recopy these as easily. So I'll have to do that same addition. That's the bad thing about Scratch. Once you've copied a sprite, if you modify the original sprite, you have to go back and add that modification everywhere. So I'll do the same thing. If length of. So if the length of the user list is equal to the length of the computer list, just like we did here, we're going to broadcast check picks and wait. And we'll do the same thing here. So a little tedious at this point. So I'm just doing that same thing on each of the 4 sprites. Do you have any questions, Vera? You can type a question while I'm finishing this. All right, so let me check it now. Let's see what you said. I'm programming the beginning. Okay. I was late. Yes, I know. But thank you for coming. So if the length of the user list is the length of the computer list, then broadcast check user picks. And that's the same there. It's always useful to check that you'd said user list one place, the computer list the other. User list, computer list, check user picks. Okay, so now I can remove this broadcast wait for user picks. I don't need that now. Let me take it off. There we go. So we'll just broadcast show picks, and then we can just broadcast it. We don't even need to say and wait. Okay. So now we need to add, I'm going to get rid of this wait for user picks. Get rid of that. It'll let me get rid of it. Yeah, it's going to be a trouble because it's long. All right, so we start with that, do that. When I receive show computer picks. So now we need a when I receive check the user picks. What we need to do now is loop through both lists and check that they're the same values. And if we ever get a different value, we'll know that you've lost, basically. So then we'll inform the user you've lost. If we get to all of the checking and you haven't lost, then we'll go ahead and broadcast next again. And then we'll go to this block when I receive next. It'll add another random number from 1 to 4. So it'll start a new round of the game, basically. So when I receive check user picks, I'm going to want to reset that index again. I'm going to use that same index. We often do that in computing, just using the same variable over again. So when I receive that, I'll set index to 0 again. And then I'll repeat the length. So go back to control, repeat variables, the length of the computer list, and we will check, we'll use an if, so I need an if first. If, So now what we really want is that if it's not the same, and there is no not equal in Scratch, we can use, if it's less than it or it's greater than it, so we can use a this or that, which is blank or blank, in order to do that. So we'll say if it's less than or it's greater than, that's the same as saying not equal. So that's what we're going to do here. And if that's true, then we'll broadcast a lose. We'll say another new message here. Oh, at the bottom here. Broadcast. Oops. Yeah, broadcast. New one. We're going to say lose. Now we've got to put this together, and that's really, we need to get the item, the number out of each list and compare those items. So under variables, we can use item blank of computer list. So we can do that here. And we'll say item blank of user list first. And we're going to use that index is what we're going to use, which item. And then we're going to do a very similar thing and compare it with the computer list. Also use the same index. So if the item of the current index of the user list is less than the item at the current index of the computer list, or, and we'll do the same thing if it's greater. So again, pull out item, drop it. I'll need to scroll over a little. I have a bit of a problem that I can't see the button. There we go. Well, I'm having trouble that it's so wide it's getting past the edge of what I'm working on, so I might pull this out and just do this piece here if I can. It's going to let me stick it in there now. There it goes. Now let me put it back in. Just getting so long. I don't want it to get so long. A little tricky trying to get it to go into the spot here. I have to rebuild it. There it goes. That one goes in. That one goes in. Okay. So I can do it with two separate ifs will also work. It will show a little better on here. So if it's less than, I'll broadcast lose, and if it's greater than, I'll also broadcast lose.